I listened to
Very
the
good.
first episode this morning, by the way. I thought it was really enjoyable, and I like the approach that
Cool.
you're taking, and it's quite refreshing actually to speak about. I don't know, not to just regurgitate the same information about YouTube and to talk about like more businessy stuff. So yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited to talk.
Yeah, that's the vibe I was going for, because with a lot of these interview podcasts for creators, is all the time the same. It's like, oh, your story, and you started like this, and you work with, in your case, like you work with Ali Abdaal, and you did this, and what you learned about YouTube, and which is, it's great content, but I feel like you have said it 1,000 times already, and
Yeah,
people, and people already listened to it like 1,000 times. So for me, I'm more
yeah.
interested like on your business. And I mean, we
Hmm.
can start right now, because I'll start like with podcast mindset already, and we can dive into it. So
Cool.
okay. So first of all, thanks George for being here and for being a guest on Creator Heist. I really appreciate it. Well, welcome. That's first.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like, I really appreciate that you coming in, because I really wanted to talk to you about your business as a creator. I know that you are like, I would say like one of the top YouTube experts that we can find out there. I would say like, especially like on the script writing part. That's how it feels to me, man. I don't know.
Thank you.
But I do want to talk, instead of YouTube. I want to talk more about like you and how you run your business, like your creator business. Because recently, just in January, I think it was, you launched your course, the YouTube Script Writers Playbook, and it was a massive success by all means. I think, I don't know if you were expecting that, but it was huge. I think you did around
Mm.
80k in sales, something like that, which is completely crazy, because you don't have like that of a huge audience, so you have like around 7,000 followers on Twitter, and then you have like 2.5, 2.6, or 3k newsletter subscribers, right? So
Yeah.
that's crazy, man. How does that feel, first of all?
Um, Man, yeah, it was kind of mind blowing, and I kind of went through phases of thinking, oh, this is actually really good, and it's going to do really well, and then having moments of like, okay, this is now a lot of time that has been poured into this, and it was probably about 6 months from start to finish, and that those fears start to kick in towards the end. And it's like, what if this just doesn't work, and maybe 3 people buy it, and cool. I hope it's really useful for those 3 people, but yeah, I really didn't expect it to do what it's done, and it's just crossed 6 figures in total, which is like
Wow.
just
Wow.
unbelievable for me. Like I yeah, it's like it's crazy, and I'm just so excited that people want it, and now I've got this opportunity to connect more directly with this like small group of people who I know are the most interested in learning this stuff, and yeah, really put my time into those people.
Can you give me like, or can you give us like the breakdown, or like the 2 lines on what the course is about, so people know, like a bit of the context on like what's the course about?
Sure. So it's essentially about systemizing the process of writing a YouTube script so that you can make them more, well, A, more engaging, and B, make the process quicker. Because I think like it's a tricky one, trying to sell it in a way that's not like this is going to suck the soul out of how you make YouTube videos. It's more just around, okay, I've got a lot of experience now writing for all these different creators. I've now spent a lot of time working with writers on behalf of clients, as part of my agency, and there are these like systems and processes that I've just noticed that start to work well, and things that don't work so well when you're working
Yeah.
with YouTube creators specifically. And like this is my attempt to distill the process as much as anything else to help people make better videos faster.
Yeah, got it. No, it's pretty good. And I would say like landing page is really, really cool. Also, I was taking a look like earlier today, and I was like, wow, this landing page looks really cool. And I think it captures like, I mean, really good. Just, I don't want to get into like the details, because I found it like really cool.
I
So
appreciate that. Just before we jump on from that, I want to
yeah,
just shout out Tommy Mallon, who did my landing
awesome.
page copy for that. He did Ali's some of his P2A stuff as well. So go check out Tommy Mallon, because he smashed the landing page.
Yeah, I will definitely. So let's backtrack a bit, because you said 6-figure launch, which is kind of crazy. Like to me, that's like boom, like mind blowing. But
Yeah.
it all starts from like the product, from an idea, right? Like you said, okay, I want to teach like this specific thing. How does
Mhm.
that let's say like I guess you had like a bunch of, and you actually have released like other digital products in the past, right? You did like a retention product and all of that. So what about this idea was special? Like how did you validate it? How did you say, okay, let's do like a full course on it? Because you worked on it, as you said, for 6 months. So you know what were the early signs that you saw that, okay, this could be like my big offer, like my big product?
Yeah, really good question. So as you said, I'd started out doing some kind of free templates and things, like a really basic script template, which is still available today. It's had like 3,000 or 4,000 people download it now, and that was, I suppose, a nice early sign that, okay, there are people who, even if they're not willing to pay me money for something, they're interested in something that I have made, and the feedback was broadly fairly good on that. So that was something. The next stage was, as you say, this sort of like low ticket paid product where all of my, I used to review people's YouTube videos in my newsletter, and basically the data that I took from those reviews, which were obviously free in the newsletter, I then put into a database elsewhere, and charged, I think it's around $50 or $60 or something like that, for kind of lifetime access. And again, that did fairly well. And I don't know exactly how many it sold, but a few hundred over the last year or so. And so then it was like, okay, this is all good, but I feel like there's a lot of work that still needs to be done by the person who is downloading or buying these things. So like the script template, cool, it helps you format your script, but there's still a lot of work you need to do. The retention graph database, great, you can filter by a niche or by whatever problem you're having and see advice that is related to what you need, but it's still it still requires a lot of effort from the person who is making the investment. And I'd always wanted to try and scale the impact of what I was able to do. And by dint of the fact that writing a script just takes, days, or at least hours and hours and hours, usually strays over a few days, I was only ever able to work with one, maybe two people at a time. And so for me, this was my way of thinking, okay, how can I spend time, even in my own head, distilling everything that I have figured out about this whole craft over the last few years. All this information that I've taken from working with lots of different creators, which is maybe an experience not loads of normal YouTubers who are just working themselves will have had. And to put all of that information in a real like step-by-step process that gets people, basically minimizes the friction at every stage of writing a YouTube video. So there's basically less thought required. Obviously, you still need the creativity, you still need like that side of things. But in terms of all those little friction points that come with creating a YouTube video, all those little micro decisions you have to make while you're writing a script, where you think, should I say this or that? Or, who should I be targeting? How do I even figure out my audience avatar? All of that stuff. I basically wanted to strip away that feeling of overwhelm and just be like, here are the step-by-step process that I've used, and this is what you can use as well for your own niche. So really the aim was to scale my impact in any way that I could.
Love that. Yeah, that's pretty smart. So yeah, so you have now concept, an idea, something, like I want to do this entire playbook, like the step-by-step thing. How do you go about like validating the idea? Because I know that you did like a pre-sale, right? Because someone told you to do it, right? Or like you got advice from a few people, right? That's the story I heard somewhere. So can you tell us a bit like about that, about pre-sale process?
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of like deviated well away from your previous question. But yeah, it came about. I was doing a consulting session. So this was after I finished working with Ali full time, but they brought me in for a consulting session. And just while I was sat talking to him, he was, asking me how everything was going. And he said, "Oh, are you going to do a course?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't really feel like I know enough yet," and blah, blah, blah. And I think he probably pointed out the fact that I had been saying similar things, over the last few years about basically everything. And I think that's really common when you're in this industry, is to just, the imposter syndrome is obviously really prevalent, whoever you are, whatever you're doing. And so he just said, put a landing page out, even do a pre-orders thing, like get people, see if people will pay you money. And if based on what people know about you already and the free stuff you've put out, if enough people are willing to pay you, then that indicates that something is good and that there is a desire for whatever it is that you want to make. So I did that. I did 50 pre-order slots. And it was this kind of tiered thing where the first 10 people who bought it would get it for $99, I think. And then the next 20 would get it for $129. The next 20 would get it for $149. With the thought that the eventual launch price would be around $300. So, at worst, you'd get it 50% off if you were the last one to get it. And all 50 of those sold out within about 3 days. And so it's like, wow, okay, there really is, an appetite for this. So then I had those 50 people, and that was really the key for the whole process, where I started brainstorming what I thought I would want to be in this product. And broadly speaking, like everything that I thought at the start would go in has gone in. But what was really useful about having these 50 people who were like, now financially committed to it was that I had them to ask what they thought about the different stages that I was at.
Nice.
So put out the broad structure that I had in mind, got a bunch of feedback. And I think I don't know who it is, and I wish I could remember, but one person basically, they said, what I want from a course like this is to arrive with a half-formed idea that I like maybe thought about on a bus or a train or something. And I want to take the course with that idea in mind. And by the end, come away with a fully written, retention optimized YouTube script that I can sit down and film. And that just clicked everything into place. That adjusted all the kind of formatting that I had. And that essentially kind of gave the structure to the overall course. And that was only possible because I had these people who were there to like bounce ideas off the whole way through.
Yeah, I think that's pretty smart that you did that. First of all, like pre-selling is smart because you are saving time that, you're not building first and then no one wants it, so that's like a big one. But then the second one, which not that many people do, because a lot of people pre-sell, but not that many people do, is like ask for feedback from those folks, like they already paid and then say, okay, you paid, what do you want exactly? And then build what they ask you, because if they pay, there's chances that many more people will pay if, because they will be like similar to these people, no? So did you have them like on an email list? Did you get them together like in a, I don't know, like a chat group or something? Like how were you getting like this feedback?
Yeah, I think it was just over email. I had them on ConvertKit. Most of them were already email subscribers anyway, and they were already fairly engaged people. So I was able to get answers out of them. Towards the end, I got them into because I host the course and community on School, and so I got them into a School community, and that's where we could chat a bit more easily. But yeah, it was mostly just over email.
Okay, so now you have this. You spend like a few months like building with this feedback. What's next? What's the next steps? Because I think you did like so the release was on January 2024, so like 1 month ago when we are recording this. But during these 6 months, did you do like any other like promotion? How were you like spreading the word about the product, or were you doing it at all, or
Yeah, it's sort of a blur by now. What I know for sure is that I did not promote it as frequently as I should have done. And right in the middle of those 6 months, there was like, what I think of as the worst period of it, where it felt like there was just way too much work to do. I couldn't really see the end in sight. And so I wasn't feeling motivated to promote it particularly. But I would say in the last month when it was, I think actually, and that's the point as well, there was a period of 2 weeks in around November when I gave my first draft of the course to all these, pre-launch people. Yeah. I think in the interim, I actually did a second round of pre-launch. So I ended up with around 100 people who were going to like be the first ones to get hold of it. And so in those 2 weeks where they were then like, had to give them time to take the course and to get their thoughts together and to send them back to me, that's when I started, I drew up a kind of Notion, like one of those timeline, or like is it a Kanban board? No, that's something else. But anyway, like a Notion timeline where I was like to the day thinking like this tweet will go out here, this newsletter will go out here, blah, blah, blah. This will link to this. And that's when it all started to come together, was when I had those 2 weeks to just breathe while people gave their feedback. But yeah, for the most part, I think I put a footer on my regular newsletter, which was just like, hey, join the waiting list if you're interested. And so that was what did most of the work. And that got me to around, I think there were maybe 600 or 700 people on the waiting list by December. And by the time I launched it in January, I think there were just shy of 1,000. So that push at the end really did make a difference to how many people were there. It's just a shame I didn't do more of that in the 6 months leading up to it.
So when you did like, because I understand that, well, maybe you didn't, I don't know. Did you do like a launch sequence? Like, during these days, I'm going to be sending more emails than usual because, those are like the launch days. And if you did that, were you sending that only to your wait list, or were you sending it like to like all of your list?
Yeah, another good question. I did basically in the build up to, I think it launched on a Friday. And so I think from the preceding Sunday, maybe, I think I might have done, I think it was like a 5-day sequence. And then on day 6, and that was just to the waitlist. So only to the waitlist people. Then there was a 3-day kind of launch weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I think on the last day of that, actually, no, I think it would have been the Friday because my newsletter goes out on a Friday. So yes, that makes the most sense. Friday is the only day that I sent out to absolutely everyone because it was like, hey, this is in my regular newsletter. I know you haven't said you're interested in this, but just so you know, the course is now out. There is a discount that goes on for this weekend only. If you're interested, get involved. But for the most part, it was just the wait list.
Yeah, got it. No, I think that's pretty smart too, because you make sure that the people who are there is like they are like 100% into like what you sell, and then you are not annoying the rest of your like the rest of your user base, and you get less unsubscribed than usual. So that's I think that's pretty cool. Because you also did mention it a few times on Twitter. So I'm curious. I don't know if you have this data. I'm just like curious to see if you have like the split of like how many people came from Twitter and how many people came from your email list. Do you have like that data more or less in your mind? Or
yeah, it's kind of, I haven't looked at it for a little while, but it was the vast majority was email. And I think mostly because people go from Twitter to the newsletter first. What I've noticed today, because I've been doing some like shuffling things around and moving around some like back end stuff. And I think I've sold about 300 of the course at this point, and I think I've had about 10 refunds. And going through today and deleting the refunds from my basically like removing the tags on ConvertKit that show them as a course buyer. I was just like scanning through their email opening history, and the majority of them, the first email they ever received from me was the thank you for buying the YouTube Scriptwriters Playbook email. Because I guess they either found the landing page or, went directly from Twitter and then, weren't engaged, didn't know enough about what the course was going to be, and then ultimately decided it wasn't for them, which is totally fine. But for sure, the majority of people, I'd say probably 80-90% were through the newsletter directly.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that those they did buy it, like the ones that buy it and stayed, is because you have been in touch with them, they know you, they know your content, they have trust in you and what you can deliver, so that's the key to get them to stay. So I think that's the usual thing, and I think it's the same in this case. So okay, so now you did the launch, which did also like around 80K, just the launch thing, but now it's like, okay, launch is done. I'm not going to talk about this for a few weeks, days, whatever. But you just said that you crossed 6 figures, so that means that you made more or less like 20K in the span of these 2 months. How where does that money come from? If you know more or less, because if you're not pushing that much in the marketing side, let's say, like how are people finding the course?
Yeah, so it's now. A lot of it is just through the newsletter, which is now kind of back in full force. There's like some liquid code at the bottom. People who already own the course they'll just get like a widget that says, hey, if you want to book a one-to-one or download my free templates, here you go. But if they haven't bought it, it's a different widget that comes up, and the top kind of offer is learn to systemize your script writing, or learn how I systemize my script writing. Can't remember exactly what I say. So that's part of it. But I've been looking as well, and I think a lot of I haven't really put any effort into SEO, but I'm noticing more people are finding the newsletter, at least through just through my website. And I don't link to my website anywhere. Like I don't link to it from my Twitter profile anymore. So people aren't going Twitter, website, newsletter. They're obviously just finding the website somehow, because my newsletter every week gets put up on my website. And so gradually, I think there's some SEO benefits starting to come in. I just have like absolutely put no effort into optimizing that. But I think those signs are a sign to me that will be something to turn my attention to next. I don't know if you've ever kind of focused on that side of thing with your newsletter or anything like that.
Not that much, and I should, because I also see like some, especially depending on the types of articles. So when we are talking about my newsletter, I did notice a trend when I did one newsletter, which was that I took Paddy Galloway, who I'm sure that you know well. No. I just took like, well, no, well, because you are in the same industry.
Sure, we've messaged a few times. He still doesn't follow me, but I'll get him. I'll get him one day.
Come on, Paddy. So yeah, like what I did is like I just took like a few of his public AMAs, like these Twitter things that he does. I ask me about anything. I just did like that and put together like the responses in like one email, and then I put that email into like one article, like, hey, I stole, I think I called it something like, I stole Paddy Galloway, the #1 YouTube consultant, something like that. And I started to see traffic coming in because people of the keyword Paddy Galloway, so people looking for Paddy
Okay.
Galloway were stumbling about my article. And I was like, this is smart. This is something like I should do probably with like other people so I can benefit from their name.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I've seen from
That's
SEOs,
cool.
so that's pretty cool.
Mm, that's
Yeah,
a good move.
so do you have like anything, so what's next now? I understand you are not planning to build a product anytime soon. Do you have any plans
Um,
to keep growing this? Do you have plans to just chill for a bit in this sense? Because I also know that you have like an agency, you have like other things to do, but speaking strictly about like your creator business, do you have any plans to grow this? Like what's next for you on there?
Yeah, I mean, that's what is next for me. I feel like I did a very bizarre thing in deciding to launch the course at exactly the same time as my agency. So December was like the worst month ever. It was more admin than I've ever had on my plate at any one time, and I think probably a lot of people have experienced that part in their growth, or maybe it's just around the corner, or maybe you've come through this and you're now on the other side of it, where you kind of write yourself into a bit of a corner, and where you essentially open yourself up. The way I kept describing it was that I'd lit a bunch of fuses months ago, and then they were all suddenly about to blow up in my face at exactly the same time. And I feel like I'm in that explosion now. So the agency has launched, as has the course, which in theory is like great. That's, I thought that was kind of the end goal, but there really wasn't a second to breathe, because then suddenly it's like, oh no, actually, it wasn't just about selling the course. It was about providing a useful community where I can interact with people and provide bespoke advice on problems that they're having. And there's a VIP tier of the course, so I've now got 5 VIPs who I want to make sure I'm giving lots of time to, and I'm reviewing their scripts as part of the package. And so there's all the like community side of things to do. And then meanwhile, I've now sort of become a manager for my 5 script writers, and it's very much a kind of a liaison role between speaking with them, speaking with the clients, trying to figure out how these systems work. And right now, I'm so in the weeds of all of this stuff. It's kind of hard to see where I'm trying to go after this. It's like it's just kind of spinning the wheels, making sure everything works. And I think then the aim is to gradually remove myself from some of these processes where possible. But I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, have you ever hit that point in what you're doing where you've opened yourself up to just so many things? It's like all you can do is just keep them moving.
Yeah, like I totally relate like what you said, because I felt sometimes that you have all of these things and you are trying to grab them, and some of them start to fall, but then you manage to grab them all at the same time, and it's like, yeah, this is going to blow up somewhere, but it doesn't. And at the end of the day, everything works out. But it feels at the same time that everything is not under your control at all.
Yes.
So
there's a bit of that.
I totally relate to that. But I mean, I'm sure that, as you said, like you are in the weeds now, but I think in 6 months from now, you're probably going to be like way more, everything is under control, hopefully. So I think you have like a good time coming for sure. So cool that the agency is working so well. If you have like 5 people working for you, that means that, business is good probably. So that's super cool, man. Like, I relate.
I think, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And good to know that it's, like it is a universal kind of experience. I think the one thing that, and what you don't anticipate, even though at the back of your mind, it's going to happen, is moving into something more like this with the agency side of things, is that you so quickly, you move away from doing the base skill that people know you for and that you've been hired for over the last 2 years. And you suddenly become, your job becomes something very different. And it's so much more about people management and like the business side of things and working out, okay, the clients, pay us this much. And so what kind of margins do we need? And what do we need to pay the writers so that it's fair pay and so that they stick around? And I suddenly feel like I need to read a bazillion different business books to learn all these skills that I am just kind of winging at this point, because it's not what I did originally. And so I suppose if there's one, like a direction that I want to go, it would probably be getting better at that. And kind of, I suppose, getting back all the tasks that I really, really love, like the kind of the more creative stuff, and figuring out where I can maybe remove myself from some of the more admin heavy tasks that are now a regular part of my life.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of creators experience in general, is that you are very good, or maybe you enjoy a lot like the creation part, but then when it comes to the business part, we are not trained for it. Usually we don't have the knowledge, and we usually have to learn it by, making a bunch of mistakes. So getting better at that part is super hard, but it's something only that most of the time is like experience, and you will learn from it. But yeah, like it's so cool that you are in that process, and you will figure out like what you will like and what you don't. So I'm pretty sure you will make it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so let's jump, like, because obviously like big part of the success of your digital product in this case, and likely your agency too, is because you are really good, from what I've seen, at generating trust in people. Like, and it's not so much because of the people that you work with, which really helps improve the credibility, but also at the same time with the content that you create. So it's two parts. Obviously it works, it helps working with Ali Abdaal. That's like a huge credibility booster, obviously. But then there is the other side of like, okay, you work with Ali Abdaal, but you need to prove that you actually know what you are doing. It's not just that thing. So what I noticed about taking a look at your top content, I was looking at your top content from Twitter, or not top, like the one that got like more engagement and everything. And I've seen that it's really like a lot of expertise, deep based content, but mixed with that credibility. You are pretty good at doing that. So I had like a few hooks that I wrote here, and I was like, I work with creators ranging from like 27K subs to 3 million. Here are like 5 retention killing traps I've fallen into, like something like that. So you are pretty good at mixing that credibility. I've worked with all of these folks, but hey, this is what I do, this is what I know. So do you think that's something, I mean, I understand it's something that you did on purpose, but was it always like that, or is it something that you have been figuring out, like, okay, I need to make my content like this because that's what attracts leads or people interested in my stuff?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's like something that I struggled with for a while. And I think when I first started working for Ali, which is my first job in this whole space, was working full time for him. I was thinking, okay, now I can just tweet interesting things that are happening here at Ali's place, or like I'm writing scripts about different things every week. I'll bring together a thread of the most interesting things I found out while researching productivity videos, or how to sleep better videos, or whatever else. And I was just never getting any traction with that stuff, because because it just wasn't super clear kind of who I was, or what the point of it was. And I always struggled with Twitter, and really, and I think even to a point, because we spoke within the last year about this, and I was struggling to get enough content out, and you gave me some really good advice about how to kind of repurpose things from the newsletter and all of that stuff. And I think really the key has just been reducing the number of services that I offered. Had kind of gave me focus in terms of what I wanted to talk about specifically. So for a while, that focus was retention graphs, and that was something that just emerged quite naturally over the course of doing a bit of work for this creator and that creator. But gradually I started to work out, okay, people have responded well when I've talked about retention graphs, so I guess I'll like really double down on that stuff. And so you're right, that kind of thread started to do really well, because people started to associate me with that thing. And the retention graph era of my life, as I think of it now, was definitely a good one. But I think then it was almost like I went too niche. And so then it was kind of, and I realized I wasn't enjoying it as much. So then I kind of zoomed out a bit more and thought, right, what is more broad than just retention graphs? Because maybe that scares some people off. Maybe that's not something everyone's interested in. But then just zooming out slightly, not becoming this, jack of all trades, master of none, and, talking about everything under the sun again, but just having this like general feeling of, okay, script writing, that's the area that I want to be in. That then just kind of became my thing. But the key then, and I know this is like quite a long-winded way of responding to this.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, good. I've always felt like I'm so desperate to admit that I don't really know what I'm talking about all the time. And I've become way more comfortable saying that on camera. Like, for example, working with Ali was really good. I didn't learn really anything about how to write scripts well while I was working there, because we were sort of plugged into an already existing machine. I was kind of guessing a lot of what I was doing. And eventually, like when I was working with Ali, I ended up being moved to a slightly different part of the business where I was working on a different channel. And so I've learned all of what I've learned about this just through trial and error, through reviewing other people's retention graphs from all these different niches, doing that for free, working with a bunch of different creators, blah, 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 blah. But like that stuff, I'm always really keen to convey the fact that I want to appear vulnerable at the same time, and I don't want to seem like I know exactly what I'm talking about, which is why in that example you give, it's like the first line is, I've done this impressive thing for these different creators, but here are the mistakes that I made and the things that I have done wrong. And that's always been really important to me, because I want to seem like a person. And the best engagement that I've tended to get over the years of doing this has been when I've said, like, I'm really stressed at the moment and I don't know which direction to go in. Give me 10 minutes and I promise I'll reply to your DMs, and like that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it just works. And because I think people want to see the person underneath the kind of the business machine that you're also trying to maintain. So yeah, a mixture of that like expertise, but also admitting you don't really know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think no one likes like a perfect expert, like something like a know-it-all, or I mean, there is like a lot of I've seen two ways of making content for people. There is like these more general, broad creators that create about everything, as you said, like, and they go viral pretty often, but I'm pretty sure that most of them, they are not able to sell like basically anything, because the audience is just too divided. It's too like, they don't care that much about you, because actually the information that they get from you, they could get from like Google, so they are you are not that relevant to them. But in your case, there is not that many people talking about YouTube script writing, likely, so this is like still very niche. But then there is like no one talking about YouTube script writing as George and his experiences, so I think that's the perfect mix for you, or for like anyone else who has like an expertise. Is like mixing it with your own experience and not being afraid of like saying things like, hey, even though I like know a lot about script writing, I need to do this thing and I don't know how to do it, so I will try this thing and I will this experiment or whatever, and that's the type of content that makes people like, okay, this guy doesn't know anything, but he's actually willing to tell me like, hey, I don't know anything, but I'm willing to figure it out, and I will share what I learned in the process, and blah blah blah. So I think that works really, really well, that approach.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why you've done so well as well, because like you self-evidently that's kind of, you're admitting with everything, it's like, I got this idea from somebody else, and like it's something that we should all implement together and try it out. And I think that's such a smart model that you've built up, and it's no surprise that people love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like the thing is, like, that's exactly what I do, so I don't have any reason to hide it. Like, I mean, I could pose as a guru and be like, hey, these are like all of my audience growth tips, that I know because I'm super smart. Or I can be actually real and be like, hey, I got this tip from this guy because I really love it, and I just did it this way, and because that's what I do. So why should I lie? I try to keep it authentic, because that's actually the type of content that I also like to enjoy, so
yeah.
Okay, so you are someone who has like a deep expertise in one topic. What would be your advice to someone who wants to monetize that expertise with something that's not like selling services, which is the obvious thing when you have like an expertise? It's like, I help you do this thing. In your case, you do that, but at the same time you have this massive product. So what's your advice to someone who wants to start monetizing that, that expertise with a digital product? Like, do you have any advice for these people looking to do that?
Yeah, that's I've said it many times today. That's a great question. Because the one thing I think would be helpful is a kind of mindset shift where you think of a 2-year time period, essentially, and think to yourself, okay, for the first 6 months, year, maybe year and a half, I can do something with this expertise that maybe makes me a nice little amount of money on the side and allows me to help people in the meantime, but that potentially the thing that's going to potentially make a life-changing amount of money, or my thing that's going to allow me to help the most number of people possible, that might be something that is 18 months to 2 years away. Because for me, it all started out with the free templates, which gradually built up, got more and more emails from everybody that downloaded one of those free templates. I think with Gumroad, it has some innate discoverability anyway. So even when I wasn't promoting stuff, people were still finding those little templates. So that was really useful. And then similarly, the newsletter, which I was reviewing people's retention graphs for free, that was all like just stuff that I was doing to try and help people and to try and get better at what I was doing. And I wasn't ever thinking about how I would make money from it. It was just about honing my skills. And even though I was already in that subject area, I just wanted to get better and better and better. And the best way to do that is to put things out there, interact with people, and to learn as much as you can. And so then the kind of the low ticket product came from that. There was this realization that, oh, I've got all this this data. Let me put that into a database. I can sell that. That'll be, you know, useful. It's a little extra income stream for the business. And it's also a way of helping those people who already find the reviews helpful find that information that's more bespoke to them more fast, because in the database they can filter by what they want. And so like all this time, it's like a step-by-step thing where it's the first point is helping people out and getting better yourself at what you're offering, and gradually stepping it up and up and up. Because what I found, particularly when I did the pre-launch for the course itself, was pretty much everyone who was willing to give me money up front, almost all of them were people for whom I'd done free retention graph reviews in my newsletter at some point. And they had, and that was really interesting to me. And so I recognized most of the names as soon as they bought it. And so that meant that first group of people, we had a pre-existing relationship of maybe a year, if not more, by the time I was then asking them for something in return. Like, can you tell me what's bad about this course? Do you mind taking a few hours to take the course and, you know, give me some constructive feedback and all of that stuff? And I think if I'd been in a rush to create this course straight away, even if I already had a decent number of followers, that relationship building wouldn't have been there. And that gradual, I mean, it's a classic, isn't it? Like, if people will give you $1, they'll probably give you $10. If they're happy with that, they'll probably give you $100, et cetera, et cetera. And that really was true for me. And so in the end, from when I started this as a freelancer, it was pretty much 2 years until the course came out. And yeah, that's like obviously been a real turning point for my business. So I think that's a thing. Just give yourself, extend the time horizon on which you're thinking of doing this stuff. And it will start out as a nice little side earner that allows you to help other people. And maybe eventually that can then become something that is life-changing for you and for other people as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because I think most people, when they do have that, they are like, I know a lot about this thing. I'm going to create like a $150 course and sell it out there. And the problem is that they skip the first part, which is the most important. That's like the trust building and the relationship building. Because as you said, the people that bought your course first were like people who you helped in the past. Then maybe you create like a snowball effect, in which people who don't know you at all might enter. But those first sales, which are the ones that kickstart the thing, you know, those are like the ones from people you helped in the past. So I think that's really good advice, and that has been my case too. For most of my digital products, whenever I release something, I usually recognize like the people that come in first. I usually recognize most of their names, because they either like respond to my emails when I send them, or they have bought products in the past or whatever, you know. So that's true. That works. I've seen it in my own case too. So yeah, I think that's pretty good advice.
And I think just to like add on as well, that I think with the people that you know, when people are willing to give you their money, even if they realize later that it's not for them. Like, I had someone in the last few days who was like, oh, I bought access to the community a month and a half ago, and I realized like I'm too busy with my full-time job. I've got kids. I just haven't used it. You know, is there any chance of a refund? And I have this thing at the bottom of my landing page that is, you know, if you message me within 30 days of buying, you know, and you're not happy with anything, no questions asked, I'll just give you your money back. And, you know, this guy was well outside the 30-day window, but it's the same. Like, I don't care. Like, I would much rather give you your money back. And because I wouldn't sleep if I was taking people's money for no good reason and it wasn't helpful. And so I think that is a real mindset to get into as well. I see a bunch of courses that are like, no, there's no refunds, or there's all these really specific stipulations. Like, if you've done this, and you're still not seeing results and blah, then I'll give you your money back. And there's probably an argument for that, but I would much rather make people happy and do something that is useful for them, rather than just hoard shed loads of money that feels kind of and makes you feel bad. So like that would be my other thing, is just be giving, and you'll get things back in return.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. Cool, George. This was like super cool. Where can people find more about you? Where can we find you? Where can we buy your course? everything, now is the time.
Cool. Yeah, so my website is just being redesigned, but it's georgeblackman.com. You can find the course at ytsp.co. That's the YouTube Scriptwriters Playbook, ytsp.co. And I'm on Twitter at georgeblackman_.
Awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for your time, George, and see everyone else on the next heist.
Nice. Thank you, Alex.